All right. Good day, everybody. You're with the Sales Slap podcast and our special guest, Neal Foard. And did I say that right? Is it Ford? How do you pronounce that?
Board. Yeah,
Ford?
just like
Okay.
surfboard.
So before we get into it, I'm going to read Neal's bio. So Neal, as we're going to hear about, is a master storyteller and branding expert who spent 25 years shaping, 25 years? He must have started very young. Award-winning ad campaigns for global icons like Budweiser, Lexus, and Sony. And for his international work on Toyota, and Simon and I are both big fans of Toyota.
Huge.
He was listed among the top 10 most decorated creative directors in the world, and he's on our podcast now. As worldwide director of creative learning for advertising giants
Hmm.
Saatchi?
Saatchi and Saatchi.
Okay, Neal authored a program to teach professionals to sell their work more effectively. This is something we want to get into. Today, he consults with Fortune 500 companies, universities, and governments on the art of persuasive messaging. A sought-after speaker, which is why he's on the most popular Canadian British podcast of all time. A sought-after speaker with multiple appearances on the TEDx stage, Neal is known to millions for his viral videos celebrating everyday human kindness. I love that idea. So,
Me too.
welcome, Neal.
Thank you. It's nice to be here. I'm noticing a Winnipeg Jets logo over your shoulder there.
See, Simon
And
was horrified that you were going to start talking about hockey.
well,
Every hockey reference is going to be a Star Wars reference, so just
right.
buckle up.
Well, okay, so since and I'm fully okay with going on a little bit of a diversion here. So yes, there is a Jets mug and there is a Jets painting, which is made by a lady that I used to work with when I worked at KPMG. Right now, the hockey and the Jets is a bit of a painful subject, Neil. So I don't know that I really want to get into
Oh,
it because
sorry.
it's a little bit upsetting right now. I don't think I can do this.
Oh no,
Um,
let's milk it. No, let's go there. Anything. Let's do that. How bad are they doing?
they have 11 losses in a row. They're last place in the NHL. They have as
And
many
for people who
losses,
just missed that, Scott, how many losses again was that?
11.
11.
Yeah,
Wow.
and they have as many losses now, halfway point of the season, than they had all of last year.
That's-
But that's not why people are here. I don't have a really great story to tell, and there's nothing kind about losing. So I want to turn this back to our guest, Neal, who was good enough to be on this amazing podcast we have, and I want to explore this idea because again, as somebody who's been in sales his entire life, and this is the Sales Slap podcast, sales, leadership, and people. I love this notion about celebrating everyday human kindness. So, how did you pick this area as something that you wanted to really lean into?
I used to do a lot of selling myself when I was a creative director at Saatchi. What we noticed again and again was most people are not great at figuring out what a good idea is. They can have it presented right to them and they don't see it. But that's understandable. If all of us were really good at spotting good ideas, then we'd all run movie studios and VC funds. The crazy thing I heard described for both the cases of Airbnb and Uber was that what made them such fantastic investments was they were great ideas that sounded stupid. And
Ah,
the idea, in other words, not everybody saw how it might work. And in sales, what I discovered was that your odds of selling something were vastly better if the person liked you. That's how life is. Life gets so much easier when people like you.
that's why Simon is so
And
successful.
okay.
Yeah.
And when the notion that a salesperson is there to fleece you, that they
Yeah,
look at the relationship between themselves and the person they're trying to selling as adversarial, that they're you'll see this particularly in car salesmen,
yeah.
where when you ask them to describe customers and describe the process and so forth, they really do see the customer as the enemy. But the best I ever saw, and I saw quite a few of them in working on Toyota, was that the best dealers and the best salespeople really were trying to help.
Help.
So, for example, one of my favorite dealers, who was incredibly shrewd and very successful, had a kind of unofficial motto, which was, I'll lose a little money to make a friend.
Ooh,
And
I
the
like
principle
that.
the principle behind it was that when they think of that other person as somebody they can help, chances are they're not going to sell them one car. They'll sell them like 11 cars. And not only that, but they'll get recommendations, and you'll often sell cars to family members. And one of the things that's underestimated, by the way, quick tangent on when it comes to car sales,
Go
is
ahead.
that somebody over the age of 55, you wouldn't think that they're going to buy many more cars, but it turns out they still have about 15 cars left in them because over the age of 55, they're buying cars for their children, they're buying them for
Ah,
their spouses, they're buying, and what happens is, if you're conscious of the fact that somebody over the age of 55, if you cultivate and take care of them, they're a lot more potent as a buyer than you might think. What's more, they have enough mileage under them to perceive the difference between somebody who's trying to fleece them and somebody who's trying to help. And I'll give you a couple of examples of a car dealer, how this car dealer used to demonstrate. He was the sort of first mover when it came to expressing his affection. So what he would do is people on the New Jersey Turnpike often have nicks in their windshield because in spring, after the snow starts to thaw, all the rocks and so forth that have been put down in order to suppress, in order to create traction on the roads, well, those start to come alive again
oh,
on the highway.
we know all about that here.
Well,
Yeah.
sure, yeah. So, so what he would do is when you pulled into his lot, if you had a nick in your windshield that was repairable, he'd send a guy out to fix it without even you telling him. And he wouldn't even mention it. You just go up at your back to your car and you go, I thought I had a crack here. And
Yeah.
now it's gone. Now, why would he not tell anybody? Because he wanted to create this kind of urban myth that when if you go in there, they'll fix it without asking, and they'll fix it without charging, certainly. And it became a topic of conversation. Do they really do that? And then people started going in there thinking, well, I'm not there to
Yeah.
buy a car or get service. I just want to see if it happens, which it would then do. And with the spreading fame, it's a little bit like a Bucky's. Do you guys have Bucky's up where you are?
No, what is Bucky's?
Have you heard of it? Oh, you haven't heard of it. Okay.
No.
So it's an American phenomenon in the South and particularly in Texas. And what it is a roadside gas station whose claim to fame are the coolest restaurants, or excuse me, the coolest restrooms on the
Restrooms.
highway. Yeah. So they had these fantastically immaculate restrooms and a lot of fun foods and so forth. And the idea was that the restrooms were so nice, they were worth waiting for. So, in other words, I could get gas anywhere, but I'm going to wait for Bucky's because they have better restrooms.
Yeah.
And they were so,
My
they were,
50-plus-year-old bladder would tend to differ on that one.
Yeah.
no, they are worth waiting for. If you can push it, they're
Yeah.
worth waiting for.
Yeah.
So this was a very unexpected marketing tool. They didn't look at it as a business expense. They looked at it as a marketing investment.
Right.
And it was the beginning of something fantastically successful. It started with generosity, which was, I'm going to make this restroom experience so much fun and so good and so true to the urban myth that you're going to spread the word for me. And that's how it worked. And that's how it would work with this car dealer, is he would do these very nice gestures like fixing the crack in your windshield because it was a marketing investment, not because it was a cost, not because it was a
Yeah.
profit center that he no longer was drawing money from. Then another example would be, and he didn't do this all the time, but he did it a lot. Somebody over a certain age, particularly a woman, would come in and they would ask for a tune up or an oil change. It was something sort of less than, $150. And he would tell the service writers, listen, when Mrs. Hotchingurtis gets out of here, don't charge her for this. But don't tell her it's from me. And don't
Right.
tell her it's the policy of the store. Tell her it's from you. Because I want her to leave here thinking she's got a guy, right? She's got a guy in the car business that will take care of her. And again, it will turn into a marketing investment because when you do really nice things for people like that, particularly over a certain age, they tell
They tell
everyone.
everybody.
And not only that, but they tell a certain kind of person. So she goes to her tennis group or her bridge club or her book club or her kids. And she says, that nice young man, Rick, he didn't even charge me for that oil change. I love Rick. And so Rick is thinking, geez, if I got to buy a car, I'm going to do it with Rick because apparently he doesn't know how this works.
So,
Yeah.
so before Simon asks this question, so first of all, Neil, you seem like you're pretty good at storytelling. So thank you for that. And you do good imitations as well. I wrote down a couple of things. So this is like a mid or an early recap. I love this notion of cultivate, take care of, and help people. I love this idea of generosity and then this notion of marketing investment. So if Rick was here, these would be
Yeah,
scrolling along the bottom. But I think there's some really important takeaways there around this notion of kindness and how it impacts our ability
yeah.
to engage with and help other people.
There's a tremendous ROI on kindness, a vastly dispropor
An
and I
ROI
can
on kindness. I'm
yeah,
writing that down too.
yeah, I can sing you chapter and verse about specific examples of how people have made a lot of money off that, off of being the first mover. But I want to return to the idea of how this impacts sales. And that is that when you go in with an orientation that I really would like to help, or let me make this as pleasant as I can. For example, in our business, we always used to say, when you're doing a presentation at the client, you have to prove to me this is going to be the best meeting they have all day. I want them to be, you I want you when you walk into their building to be famous for leaving a smile on people's faces. And
That's
then
so cool.
what's going to happen is they're going to look forward to seeing you. And even if they say no, they're going to kind of feel like they owe you one because
Reciprocity.
thank you. Exactly, Scott, because of the rule of reciprocity. And but again, you can't go in with the objective of I'm going to sell this. You have to go in with the objective of I think this is going to help you. Let me explain it and you see whether you agree with me. Now, why is this so potent? And I think why it's increasingly potent in the spirit of a Bucky's with the nice restrooms or a car dealer who fixes your windshield. Why it's increasingly potent is our media and our social media especially are being driven by algorithmic selection.
Yes.
So the things that are getting shared the most are things that are rage baiting because when you enrage someone, they engage. And so let's say, for example, that somebody does a video where they take a very, very odd and hateful political stance. Like they're obviously grinding an axe that is intended to piss people off. Half of the people that leave notes are going to be in support of it, and half are going to
Yeah.
be telling them they're a jerk. Well, that's double the traffic of somebody who just posts really nice things. Right?
True.
So the algorithm favors the rage baiting. It favors the jerk off. And so what happens is we get fed a steady diet of hateful, awful people who make a career out of dividing us. Now,
Yep.
into this cesspit walks somebody who says, I don't want to be part of that. I don't care if I'm only engaging at 50% of the algorithm's recommended rate.
Mm.
I, all I want to do is I want to leave the commons better than I found it. And that's just a spiritual commitment. That's just trying to do good in the world.
Yeah.
And that was my mission is there's so much division and there's so much rage and there's so much uh, division that what I'd like to do is I'd like to be the antidote. Now, I'm not going to be the antidote, but I'd like to be an antidote. I
I
want to
love it.
participate. I want to participate in the good side of this, only to discover, guys, yeah, that the ROI of kindness is very high. And let me give you a sort of smallish example. I love this. So my friend Marcus and I, we went to LAX goes everywhere, right? You can get a flight to pretty much everywhere out of LAX. But LAX is a hub. So it's a hub for Delta, it's a hub for United. That means that a weather event in a city like Chicago, which is a hub for Delta for United, or
Yeah.
Atlanta, which is a hub for Delta, if you get a weather event in one of those two cities, it cancels a lot of flights in LA because people were using LA to connect.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, weather event in Chicago. It's a bright sunny day on a Thursday morning in LA, and all of a sudden, kink, 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 canceled, delayed, delayed, canceled, and people are really hot under their collar with the people behind the counter as they're checking their bags because they think they've got some kind of switch back there.
Yeah.
They can flick it, and all of a sudden, oh yeah, no more snow in Chicago. Well, we were there on one of those days, and lots of cancellations. And LAX was just a simmering zoo. Now they're taking it out on these poor people behind the counter, and these two women. And these women are having to suffer, these swamp donkeys who just are not self-aware. And so they kind of lost their faith in humanity. The couple in front of us are just a couple of insufferable, condescending dirtbags.
You can
And
say it.
event
It's a safe place to say it.
Okay, well, anyway, they slither off, taking their aggro with them. And before I can say anything, my companion Marcus, who used to be an improv actor, he gets right up to the counter and he says, "Oh man, those two are in big trouble." And the woman goes, "What?" And he goes, "Bjarki saw the whole thing, and all the trolls know each other, and he's going to tell them all what happened. And if you feed him before the sun goes down, he will take his revenge." And then he pulls out a bag of M&Ms and he says, "These are his favorite." Okay, so the other woman, not the first woman, is looking at Marcus like, "Who are you?" Now the other person goes, "Can we feed him now?" And Marcus goes, "Yes, you can feed him now." So here's what happens. The psychology of this situation is this woman is no longer, she doesn't even remember the
Yeah.
couple that came before. And she has been disrupted in her thought process about the human race. All she's thinking about 100% is this lunatic in front of her. Now, luckily, he's a happy go. He's not really a lunatic, and she
Right.
knows that.
Yeah.
But she's been disrupted from thinking about the human race, and now she's focused entirely on Marcus, the man in front of her. And she's laughing now, and the other person is laughing. And you know what they've done is they've taken Bjarki, they put him behind the counter so they can see him. Nobody else can. And they've got the little M&Ms there. And you know that every D-bag that walks through there that morning, they're going to just put another M&M in front of Bjarki. So what Marcus has done is he has erased the whiteboard of all of the assembled rage, all of the accumulated tinder that was going to ignite into an episode. And he's given her a pressure release valve
Yeah.
in the form of a kind of fake ritual, like a voodoo doll. And what people don't recognize, and I'm going to get to the ROI now, what people don't often recognize is that the people behind the counter that are checking your bags, they see you again at the gate. And when we got to the gate, guess who got an upgrade? Marcus, because they have discretion over upgrades.
Mm.
So,
Mm.
so
The ROI
because
of kindness.
right. So for a 66-cent troll and a bag of M&Ms, he got a $470 upgrade. I didn't, by the way.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you learned a valuable lesson too then, Neil.
I did, but I see these all around me where oftentimes whether it's a hotel or an airline or a number of places where there is a service person who seemingly has to suck up your BS all day, they do have a lot of discretion about ways they can help you. And being sweet-natured and supportive and understanding the difficulties they experience, as in the case of like, having your revenge on some slithering couple. Um, this being recognized and seen, for the pains you go through, is a very powerful way to earn a relationship with
It's
somebody.
human, right? It's very human.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I love telling that story
With me.
because I love telling it because people sort of recognize the truth of, oh yeah, how easy would that have been? It really doesn't take much effort at all to say, "Hey, listen, I'm so sorry for that couple ahead of us. I apologize on their behalf." And if you're willing to give the human race one more try, I promise you, I'm not a bad guy. I mean, come on, how much effort does that take? That doesn't take any effort.
Simon, what are you thinking?
Well, I mean, seriously, I could just rock up and listen to everything you're saying and just watch everything you're saying because the elements of what you're covering are amazing. And I've made so many notes on what you've said so far. I think working backwards, this concept of an ROI on kindness, when you think about the sales situation, just giving something away as you intimated at the beginning, is so important. I believe in my business and giving things away, and I give a lot away, and I seem to be able to get quite a lot back because there is this concept that people like to receive a taster. They like to receive something that's a gesture. And when we think back to where these things have started from, if we look back into things like the cosmetic industry, for example, Estee Lauder
Yeah.
firmly believed that if you're going to sell peanuts, make sure you sell the best peanuts and make sure you give them away. And she was the first company within that sector to start sampling, where she was actually giving her product away,
Hmm.
knowing that people are more likely to come back and buy it. That gesture of kindness without too much commitment. When we start to think about that in the sales environment, being able to give a little away, or an idea of what you're giving away, or bits of data that have a value to somebody that you can then translate into that gesture of kindness, will give you an ROI, and it will give you possibly the chance to win that business. But if you've already won it, there's an opportunity through, a bit of storytelling, a bit of relatability, that people will think, actually, I think you could help us with something else.
Yes.
And it
Yeah.
will be because you did that thing.
Yeah,
Now,
Simon,
one
you
thing
said
I
a
want to,
mouthful.
well, I did. Now,
Yeah.
there's another thing I want to pick up on that you've said as well, which is around the car dealer and the number of cars that the car dealer will end up selling. And I think this is a really important point for those people in sales that are watching this, because the guy is selling a certain number of cars. Now, he might be selling horizontally to the family, but what he's also going to be doing is selling vertically across a period of time. And when those people need another car because the one he sold them is either no longer valid for them, it's worn out, they will go back to him. And that means that that salesperson has a value in terms of the lifetime that he's selling. And we talk about client lifetime value in
Yeah.
sales. How much is someone going to buy from you over the period of time that they're a client? And I think this is really important, that we continue to do these really good things, give things away, be relatable, in order to extend that period of client lifetime value, because it helps us sell and it helps us get over the price objection when people start to think, well, that's too expensive. But over the period of a lifetime, in how long you work with us, you're going to be spending this amount of money. So I think you've touched on so many different things. You really have. I also just want to throw something back in as well. Sorry, Scott, but
No.
it's funny when you talked about being able to recognize a good idea and stupid ideas right at the beginning. And somebody that I follow in HR in business, Patty McCord, who was the HR director of Netflix, said in her culture deck for leadership in business that basically all startup ideas are stupid. If they weren't, then everybody would be doing them.
Yeah.
So when we start to think about, recognizing a good idea, it links so nicely with what you said. In the advertising world, I worked in advertising as well for 16 years, and dealing with agencies, dealing with sales and selling, you have to be creative. You've got to come up with these ideas, and sometimes they might seem stupid, but sometimes those are the ones that work.
Well, the main thing that we discovered was that it wasn't it wasn't the idea that was going to sell the product, or in our case, we were selling creative concepts. It wasn't the idea that was going to sell it. It was the conviction of the buyer that it's going to do what you say it's going to do.
Yeah.
Mm.
And that involves an enormous component of trust. Hence, every time you go in and have a good meeting, and by good I mean entertaining and helpful and creative and lively and stimulating. Every time you have a meeting like that, you're paying into a kind of 401k
Oh, I love this.
for them to trust you. And you guys probably heard this term, galvanic skin response. It's
Yeah.
the instantaneous subconscious reaction you have to someone, whether it's affection or disdain, or any number of the emotional spectrum. Well, you really do build up a kind of positive galvanic skin response when you walk in with an orientation that I'm really here to help you. I'm not necessarily here to sell you anything. Simon, you were talking about sort of the customer lifetime value. I'd also like to just touch on CAC, the customer acquisition cost. The
Yeah.
a referral is a customer acquisition cost of zero, but it's not really zero. It's the investment you made in the previous customer. It's the it's fixing the windshield so that you gain a kind of urban legend. It's the Mrs. Hotchin Curtis gets a free tune-up. That's an investment in a customer acquisition cost of nearly zero in 4 years. All of the best car salesmen really do care deeply about the fates of their customers. I saw at this dealership that this guy ran, there was a young woman. I was waiting in the waiting room and I was overhearing a conversation. There was a young woman who had brought her father and brother along to protect her, from these scalpers at the car dealership. And I watched this salesman actually talk her into notching down a level. He took her from a Camry into a Corolla because over the course of the conversation, he realized that in order for her to get all of the things that she wanted in a Camry, he was going to have to charge her a lot of money. It's the extras, the options that get you.
Mm.
And so he said, I really do think that, listen, I don't think you're going to be happy unless you get certain options. I'd like to move you down into a Corolla, which is a fantastic car. It's easier to park, gets better mileage. The track record on these cars is essentially they're bulletproof.
Mm.
Um, if I take you down a notch, I can give you all of these things and we're still at your budget. And you could just watch on the father's face, like, brother, I'm never going to stop coming to you. You know,
Well, I'm going to chip in on this because I had a very recent experience where something exactly the same happened with Apple, with the
Ah.
launch of the 17. And I was on some, I don't know, iPhone 12, I think I was still working on or something, or maybe a little bit more. You've got to make these things eke out. And
right.
I went into the Apple store and I said it was close to launch day, so it was busy. And there were so many people buying these phones. It was incredible. And it was impossible not to have a galvanic skin response to this with people buying. And it made me want to buy. And I said to the guy that was in there, I'm thinking about changing my phone. I do need to do it. And I'm really excited about the 17. And he asked some really good questions. What are you using it for? And I went through everything. And he said, do you know what? He said, I'll be honest with you. And I said, oh, before you say that, I said, every
Yeah.
salesman says to be
Never
Yeah.
use that
honest
phrase.
with you. Yeah. Watch that reaction.
Say to be
Um,
blunt.
yeah, it was like, now I'm going to bring out my little Lego fox, and every time you lie, you need to feed him. So, so
I don't have anything.
I'm going to be honest with you, and I'm going to be direct. He said, you don't need the 17, and I don't think you should buy the 17. And I nearly fell off my chair. And I said, really? He said, no. He said, don't buy the 17. He said, there aren't enough upgrades and things on it, really. He said, that make it worth the price at the moment. He said, you'd be better off just buying the 16. He said there were significant leaps in that. He said to make it worth your while. He said, so if you buy the 16, you're going to save a huge amount of money. Do you know what? I said to him, I'm quite a reflective person. I need to go away and think about this a little bit. I said, just to weigh it all up. I went away. I think I got 100 yards outside the door
Then you turned around.
before I turned around and went back in. And it was like, this is amazing that this guy would do this.
Yeah.
And would I buy a case from him? Would I buy the screen cover? Yes, of course I would. I was buying those things anyway. But the fact is, he kind of cemented me to him so that when my husband needed a new phone, it was really easy to say,
Yeah.
go in and talk to.
Yeah.
And guess
Yeah.
what? He's now got the 16. But the guy sold me a 16, but he sold Matt the 16E, which because it was right for his needs, it was
Yeah.
right for what he wanted. He didn't think about the money. He thought about caring for what the customer wanted.
The ROI of kindness. And
The
so,
ROI of kindness.
Neil, if you're, I'm going to probably run with this a little bit, but I want to kind of get into I think a super important theme here around storytelling. And I'm not going to pretend to be an expert, although, storytelling is an inherent part of sales. Part of what I've been absorbing from you and then from what Simon just shared is that, and I'm kind of looking for you to expand on this because this is your bailiwick. I love that word bailiwick, by the way.
That your
Is
new
that
word?
it's not a new word, but I think it's a word that I'm almost 60 I can use now. I can pull off the word bailiwick, I think.
Okay.
Um, my understanding is that our brains are wired to remember stories. We're moved by stories. And I think
Yeah.
what I see is a lot of salespeople want facts and figures and brochures and technical sheets and all that. And really what moves, what influences, what connects us with other humans, with potential customers, is to be able to tell a story. And you can give them 20 facts and figures, or you can tell them a story. And I imagine that most customers are going to remember that story that you told them about how you helped somebody else with a similar situation. So maybe my question as I'm rambling here is, what's the science behind that? Why is it that being able to tell an effective and relevant story is way more impactful than what a lot of salespeople do, which is pitching in facts and figures?
There's a British economist. His name is Gray, I think, and he has the hypothesis that despite our technological advances, we are still Paleolithic creatures.
I love this.
That
Yep.
we think that because we've got GPS and smartphones, that somehow we are smarter than the people that came before the Wright brothers, which is absurd. We are still super suspicious, uh, tribal. We're just sacks of protoplasm with competing emotions that we don't know what we're about. And so
Sacks of protoplasm.
I want you to imagine us literally 50,000 years ago sitting around a campfire where we're talking about how we're going to kill a bison with sharp sticks the following day. And have you noticed that Okna over there is taming that wolf by feeding him at night? the we are no further advanced emotionally or cranially
Emotionally.
than those people. And all of our decisions, despite the rationality that you think you carry around, your emotions are really what are driving your decisions. Now, the uh,
Emotions are what
story.
driving the decisions.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, for 100%. For example, we have a triune brain. Over the course of our evolutionary progress, we started with a lizard mind that reacts
Yeah.
to things like,
Fight or flight.
movement, right? Exactly. Or fight, flight, or and procreate. And so the impulses that you'll see with some people that they just can't stop themselves from just doing whatever is right in front of them. These people are still tapped into their lizard brain. The triune brain, then's the second phase of it, is the limbic brain. That's
Yeah.
the part that makes us a mammal. So that's the part that contains trust, love, jealousy, and all of the various package of emotions that help us live amongst one another. The mammalian need for love, affection, and belonging is so profound
I love this is great.
that it's so profound that you can literally drive someone out of their mind if you isolate them. So you put somebody into solitary confinement, they've got about 40 days before they're completely insane. And
Yeah. I'd be about five, but
yeah, I mean, isolation makes you feel incredibly vulnerable, and togetherness makes you feel incredibly safe. This is why you'll see people often will dress alike, or like uniforms are so powerful because it
Mm.
makes you feel protected by your group. And again, you'll see this in um, the various orthodoxies, like everybody wears the same hairstyle at a certain day and age, or they wear the same type of jeans, or and there's nobody more fine with more finely tuned sense of the orthodox than like a 13-year-old girl who can tell you exactly what's in and out, right, when it comes to fashion or hairstyle and so forth. Well, all of these impulses are related to the idea that we feel safer in groups. Now, the emotional need to feel bonded is part of that. It's a little bit of our own algorithm that causes us to bond with others. Is this feeling of mutual affection, and we do all of our decisions based on the desire to be part of a group and to feel like we belong. Unfortunately, it collides with the other part of us, which is the eternal friction of human experience is I want to get along with everybody, but I also want to get ahead of everybody. This is where the problems occur. And what unsophisticated people don't seem to realize is that if you want to get ahead of everybody, you need to get along with everybody. In other words,
yeah.
you really do need to demonstrate a certain capacity for caring about others. And the example that I always use is we are very close cousins with chimpanzees and bonobos. And in the chimpanzee societies, their troops, their little tribes, which they call troops, are usually led by a physically dominant male. And if you have ever seen a chimpanzee without its hair, that is a chilling sight. They
It
are a
would it would
lot.
look it would look like this.
No, they are yoked. They look like the most yoked gymnast you've ever seen in your life.
That's
It's
my point,
frightening.
Neil. You-
Okay. Sorry, you still have your shirt on, so I couldn't tell. Anyway,
Just
so
imagine, just imagine.
chimpanzees are
Let's
incredibly
not.
dangerous. They also have, you've probably seen their canines. They're wolfish. I mean, their teeth are unbelievably dangerous. Well, if a chimpanzee leader is not sufficiently protective of the weak, if they are too selfish, too domineering, if they are perceived as bullying, that troop will literally rip him limb from limb. They will pull his body parts off of him
Ouch.
after they've chewed his genitals off.
There's no
And
need for that.
chimpanzees have a very finely tuned radar for fairness. And if, like I say, if you start to cross that line, they will kill you. And remember now, we are very close cousins and we have finely tuned radar for fairness. And I don't think people are aware that, we carry around these grudges. And anybody who's lived in the hills of a sheep culture, like the Balkans or Sicily, or like the cultures of the West Virginia hollers, these people have a very finely tuned radar for slight, for being disrespected. And it often comes to blows and to bloodshed. Therefore, what I would like to suggest is it is in our nature as human beings that when you are the first one to demonstrate a certain affection, that the reciprocity you get in return is very powerful. And what's more, um, people's emotions are affected by gestures of kindness, and they'll even feel that way about you when they watch you be kind with somebody else. It doesn't have to just be them. You will reap the benefits of kindness when somebody else sees you being kind to the weak and to the disadvantaged. And and the opposite is also true. If you want to make a society boil,
Yeah.
if you just want to maybe make that kettle pop off, just be unkind to people who can't fight back, and you're going to reap a whirlwind.
Well, the return on investment of kindness speaks volumes, and I think
Yeah.
many people would have taken that away today. And I think there's quite a lot that we've said there that could be translated into a lot of events that have happened over the last 24 hours as well.
Yes.
So,
Indeed.
very, very poignant there, very poignant. Scott, would you like to do a quick recap as we come to the end of our show?
So first of all, yeah, thank you for that, Simon. I can't get over how quickly this went. And I wanted to let you know that when you were starting to talk about like primitive man, I wanted to throw out the word Australopithecus so I could sound smart because it's one of the things I remember from
That's
university
two
anthropology.
words, that and bailiwick. My
Uh,
God.
but just to be clear, Australopithecus, there's an Africanus, which is a big, and then there's the Africanus robustus, which is anyway. I remember things from university. My point being is that I think what was really interesting about this is that I love this element of kindness and humanity, and I wrote down things like, again, I did this before, but the ROI of kindness is super powerful. It's an investment, right? This is a marketing investment versus a cost. I wrote down generosity and reciprocity. These are things that aren't typically or inherently considered to be sort of part of the sales process or even the leadership process. But I would suggest that based on science and experience and what you shared here, they are an inherent part of how we connect with other people to be able to help them. And invariably, if you want to lead better, if you want to be able to sell better with your services, that these are inherent. So you can have the best products in the world, but if you're not doing these things, it won't matter because no one's going to want to work with you. So I think this is such a fascinating topic, and we could talk about it forever. So that's my takeaway. Simon, how did you want to recap this?
Well, I think we've covered pretty much everything. I think for the minute, Neil, we know that you have a storytelling that maybe you'd like to just tell us a little bit about?
Yeah, I have a course online called
Storyfire.
Storyfire.
Hey,
It takes its name from sitting around the campfire telling stories. And it's an excellent course, actually. It's a series of videos, 25 videos that are nice and bite-sized. Usually they're less than 6 minutes long, so that if you're in a waiting room somewhere, you can, go through one or two of them. And they come with exercises. And it can be found at www.storyfire.net. It's the dot.
fantastic.
I
It's
will
the
add
dot
this to
com.
my I will add this to the LinkedIn link. I see it here.
Please
Right on.
do. Please do.
Also, add a link to nealfoard.com if you spell my name right, because I sell Conspiracy of Kindness t-shirts there.
Cool.
So
We'll have
yeah.
some of those.
I
How else can people reach you, Neil?
I'm really easy to find because I spell my name weird. So if you just spell it right, Nealfoard, you'll find me. And I'm Neal Foard at Yahoo, Neal Foard at Gmail, Neal Foard at Mac. You know what I mean? I'm because I have that. I'm the only one who spells it that way. So, but if they do go to nealfoard.com, yeah, they can find the merch, which is which I love because I love wearing these T-shirts that say things like "Pissed Off for Greatness" and "Conspiracy of Kindness."
Well, if I can find some shirts that would fit this double XL body, then
I know,
I will consider it.
this barrel chested. I do have to. I don't know that you have any more time, but I do want to sort of
Sure we do.
leave on a story,
Please.
which is, and I think it's quite relevant to sales, particularly because it's consistent with the theme we've been talking about. So I was in this restaurant and I overheard these two gals talking, and one of them had just gotten divorced, and she was complaining about her ex-husband, and she was saying that he was a dog, and that all men are dogs. And I thought to myself, I'm not a dog, but if I was a dog, I
Yeah.
think I could sue her for slander because she was saying it as though dogs are a bad thing.
Right?
Now, now everybody loves dogs,
Yep.
but to be objective, dogs do have drawbacks. I mean, if you have a dog, you got to walk them all the time and you have to feed them constantly. You have to pick up their poop. You have to board them if you go away.
How is
They
that different to having children?
yeah, true. But they cost a fortune at the vet. So yes, again. And
Worth every penny.
God help them if they bite someone. I mean, you're really screwed. So my question is like, well, with all of these drawbacks, why do people bother? Why do they love dogs so much? And my answer is because dogs love you first,
Yep.
and they don't judge you. They're always happy to see you. And here's the most important thing: they don't look at you and wonder if they could have done better. Now, how is this relevant to sales? The thing is that when you are the first to move, when you are unafraid to be the first to demonstrate, that you're happy to see someone and that you care about them, that makes you, like a dog, kind of impossible not to like.
Absolutely. I
That is a
love that.
as a crazy like we love dogs, both Simon and I
We
do.
do.
That is a great way. And I actually did a post several months ago about how we'd be better in sales if we were more like dogs. I'll have to find it and share it with you because I think that that's a really good lesson. It's unconditional, it's reciprocal. They just want to make you happy, like all those things. So maybe the final takeaway is if you want to be even better at sales or as a leader, think like a dog. I'll leave it at that.
Let's do that.
All
Thank you
right.
so much. That's
Thanks,
brilliant.
Neil. Thanks
Cheers.
for joining us for the Sales Flap podcast.
My pleasure.